Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome everyone for the AI 2030 show. My name is Xiaochen Zhang, and this is your daily AI show. And for today's show, that we have Matthew, who is with us, and I would like to just have Matthew to introduce yourself and your role within Singularity Net.
So yes, my name is Matthew Ikle. So a little bit about my background. I earned a PhD in mathematics 3 decades ago, 1993. And in my very first position after graduate school was at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And there was a young mathematician there that I met in that very first position. His name was Dr. Ben Goertzel, who is currently Chief Executive Officer of SingularityNet. We've worked on a number of projects over the decades. I ended up in academia for a while at a small liberal arts state-supported liberal arts institution, which was actually very good for pursuing artificial general intelligence because there wasn't dictates by administration on what I needed to research. So it gave me complete freedom. And then once SingularityNet was formed, and I actually did some modeling, mathematical modeling of the economics of SingularityNet. I started working for SingularityNet in 2018. I left the university, and my primary role right now, my title, which is not so important, is Chief Scientific Officer. But essentially, where I see my role in the grand scheme of things is how do all the various threads within the SingularityNet ecosystem come together? How does one orchestrate those threads, for example, in Hyperon, OpenCog Hyperon initiative, to create AGI? So to kind of get the kind of punctuated equilibrium that I believe are necessary to create this huge technological change. And what sorts of ideas underpin that?
Got it. And maybe you can also share a little bit with us about your personal journey with AGI, and was that a research interest when you were doing your PhD, or was that after you met with Ben? And how did it came about? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it largely was due to my meeting Ben. My graduate studies were on the boundary kind of between theoretical math and applied math and some physics. My dissertation was the Broadwell model for gas dynamics, which is essentially a micro level modeling of the gas dynamics, and how do you get these emergent macro scale properties from that. So what I worked on a lot in graduate school were complex dynamical systems, and that influences my view of research. Once I met Ben, we hit it off. We began just doing some problems in genetic algorithms and genetic programming and some computer modeling with graph theory, some coevolutionary systems. So, but in essence, from that initial start, we only overlapped at University of Nevada, Las Vegas for 6 months before he went to New Zealand on an unpaid leave. And we kind of just kept in touch over the years. And then I landed the position I had prior to SingularityNet. And I continued to it was a teaching institution, but I needed more than that. My mind I needed the research. So we kept in touch. I did some work, some consulting work for him, and actually spent a year at Ben's first company in New York City, which was WebMind. And and then we just kept in touch and kept working together. Probabilistic logic networks came out of that, and in just various incarnations. And I ended up getting a U.S. Army Research Office grant to involve my students in research. That research was exactly the work I was doing in AGI related research with Ben.
Got it. Thank you. And maybe again, that's just to go a little bit deep into the AGI side. That's what is the AGI and why it is an important topic for you?
So the G in AGI stands for general. So AGI is artificial general intelligence. So what does that mean? So that means something akin to you and me. So human level AI, something that is not constrained to specific domains. It's not just a great chess playing AI. It's not just a great Go playing AI. It's not an AI that's only good for finance problems, but it's an AI that can explore the world, learn about the world, and apply intelligence on an as-needed basis to everything. I don't know if that's probably a pretty vague sounding statement. It probably is, because once we have AGI, we could probably define it more clearly. But it's AI not constrained to specific domains, but can generalize across domains, can learn patterns from one area that's like, wait, I see a connection here. I'm not exactly sure. Let's try it out. We can do. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and there that where do we stand in terms of the AGI development and research, and where that's are we far away from it, or are we in the middle? And then especially with the ChatGPT and also the neuroscience development, do you see the progress in that is more advanced than before, or where do we stand?
So that's a great question. And of course, there's no easy answer. There's my belief. I mean, I think we're not that far away. Our company has placed a stake in the ground saying 3 to 7 years to AGI. It's like in the era before the first heavier than air flight, saying, when are we going to have flying planes, and you can make a date. You think it's not that far away. I do see a number of items aligning. Obviously, we have ChatGPT, which is an incredible tool. It has certain limitations, and from my view, but it also is quite powerful. I've been following a number of threads that and just recently some of these from neuroscience, where some studies show long-term, it was kind of a week-long study of EEG patterns of some people, and that excited me just because it pointed, and I mentioned my graduate research was in complex dynamical systems, and it just fit in with that viewpoint. Of course, that's my bias, so I'm going to see that. But in terms of the patterns of the EEG going from a semi-stable state and then going through a period of chaos and then settling into another semi-stable state. And that, to me, screams strange attractors, because that's exactly the kind of dynamics that you see there, which tells me that there's a pointing in a particular direction that could be useful. There's also some recent works I've been reading that also make me think, and I can go into detail on that, but that there's a coalescence around a number of ideas that point to a path towards AGI. And I do think that we will be there within the decade.
Got it. And
Okay.
so there, that's within the whole AGI development, or more broader AI, that's what is the role of a singularity net, and what is the mission of singularity net?
So the I could pull up the actual mission page, but the mission of Singularity Net is not just the development of AGI, but of a benevolent and beneficial AGI. So one that's the furtherance for good for humanity and all creatures, essentially. So I think that is super important. Again, AGI would be a powerful tool. The mission is, so technically the mission is to create a decentralized, democratic, inclusive, as I said, beneficial, benevolent AGI, and it's those words coupled with AGI that are super important.
And there, that maybe we can just because each word reflects something very important in our society, and
right.
from the decentralized property, you are talking about the blockchain piece, right? And where that's having
Right.
democratic, in my mind, is that you make AGI be accessible by more people, or this democratic is only for human, or it's beyond human, or
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they bring up a good point. So ideally, it's inclusive to all.
and then we
So
go back to the beneficial.
how that becomes in practice is another question. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when you also for the beneficial part, that's beneficial to whom, and also who define that, and is that because broadly we always and say that this is just the emerging social, economic, environmental negotiation where that a new social contract need to be agreed upon by the society. So I
Right.
think there that's the beneficial piece that in from singularity net perspective, I don't know whether there's a formed opinion there that the beneficial piece is that defined by humans? Is that defined by singularity net, or is it defined by what is who AGI will serve, and also who define that, who include in the discussion about the benefit?
So I mean, that's exactly the point. So, right, yes, it's blockchain, the decentralized system. Now, who's defining, beneficial? Well, part of that is by construct. Why have the blockchain involved? It promotes transparency, and so that allows for input from all. It's not so when we talk about beneficial, benevolent AGI, it's not a top down. We're going to define it. It's more, how can we gain, I don't want to say consensus, but it's the word that comes to mind. How can the community come up with, here's the types of events that we think will help create beneficial AGI? What does that mean? That's not something. It's a process, and it's not an easy thing to talk about, right? Because there's a lot of currents. So present, to try to kind of further implement how much we believe in this, while simultaneously providing direction to Singularity Net. We're in the process of what we call in Singularity Net itself progressive decentralization. So initially, yes, there's a vision. This is what we are after. Initially, it's kind of the leadership of Singularity Net is providing that direction. But the idea is, as time goes on, we want to decentralize that. So there are fewer people with strong say, and it becomes more democratic across the organization. And that's what I would see also in terms of this mission for creating beneficial AGI. You can't just start from nothing, and you do need some direction. But now we want to spread that so that it's not an autocracy, but it becomes a kind of a guided mission of the entire community.
Yeah, if from what you explained, I understand correctly, that's what Singularity Net is trying to achieve is that's defined by a few principles which are essential, and you try to create a movement, and it's not
Correct.
end the results, which is now it's more as you try to guided by these core principles, then kick off the movement, where the movement will be going, and then that's the community will just drive it in that sense. Is that a
Right.
fair assessment?
Yes, I mean that's a hard thing to pull off, which is why we're thinking through how we're spreading out the power over time.
Yeah, and then now we talk a lot about the principle level. That's go to the
You don't want to lose that principle, right?
Yes, exactly. I think that's quite important, because by the end of the day, that's as what you said, that's you leave the university and join this movement, and then those I think something must be very important for you to make that decision, right? That is probably it's not at the tactic level, it's more at a strategic level, where that those principles are more aligned with your end goal and mission, all that, so then that can probably drive you to make those more critical decisions. Now that I'd like to just move from the principle level one level down to just talk about the innovations, and part of this, as you see AGI, or in general AI, can create both benefits but also risks and challenges, right? So
Yes.
for you, that's what are the biggest challenges that AI may bring to the humanity, or to the society, or to the company, to individuals? Yeah.
So it's like any tool that humans create. You have the positives, the beneficial use cases, but humans are very adept at also finding the not so good use cases. That's a problem that's a human problem.
Yeah.
It's not a problem of the technology. The technology can amplify those human traits for good or for evil.
Yeah.
So in terms of challenges, it's often a cat and mouse game, a lot like cryptography. We're seeing a lot of the bad uses being used in terms of trying to drive wedges between different people, different groups, through use of deep fakes. You begin questioning what's actually real. Did that person actually say that, or did somebody put words in that person's mouth? So a lot of this depends upon verification of data sources. So there's a lot of technical solutions, but again, the technical solutions are going to be band-aids, because the cat and mouse game, an evil actor does something over here, you're able to fix that. They said, well, no, now we're going to get around that fix. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges moving forward. To a certain extent would be educating people so that they become much more, this is a different direction than what I was originally going, but able to see through await, question what they're seeing. Is this really true, or is this something that was created to try to persuade me for a particular
Absolutely. And
direction?
if you prefer, you can live in the alternative reality, and which is not a reality, which can be really created, and then everything
Right.
that the alternate reality will see or feel really very close to reality. But again, that's just is not. And I think that is something that when you talk about technology can be used for the purpose defined by human, and then that's before without artificial intelligence, it's very difficult to achieve that. But with AI and to create alternate reality, and then you live and have all the very real authentic experience, becoming something which is really achievable. That itself for many organizations, thinkers, and also policymakers are troublesome, where that's how
Right.
to really, as what you said, differentiate fact with non-factual reality, that becoming a thing. Before that, you don't have to. And then the third-party validation and all that becoming very important. But that just probably also bring back to the blockchain piece, right? And how does blockchain
Correct.
to just achieve that, and then to tell us what is reality, what is the fake, and maybe you can just shed light on that. How can blockchain make AI developed in the right direction?
Well, so again, it's through. I would argue the big direction there is the transparency. I don't. We're never going to completely. It's always going to be. We're never going to completely solve that challenge. It's more a process of solving that challenge. It's an ongoing push, and to be aware and understand the how there's always this kind of gaming going on, people trying to really push buttons, and that transparency can provide that insight into that button pushing, for lack of a better word, to be able to kind of see it and track it and verify things along the way. But it's like being on a tightrope. You're never balanced. You're always balancing. And I would argue that that's the, and I don't think it's unique to AI. I mean, we've faced these challenges before.
Yeah.
With quantum physics, the movie Oppenheimer that just came out, where you're dealing with some really big human consequences of scientific progress. It's a constant questioning. It's not necessarily that you answer, but I would argue it's this ongoing process that needs to be engaged in. And by providing that backbone of transparency, that's where blockchain and some other technologies that I've been working on can, in terms of watermarking of data sets, that sort of thing, so that that the data itself has not been the word escape, has not been altered.
Yeah, exactly. The
After the fact,
authenticity
right?
of the data becoming a challenge.
Authenticity, right? So all of these come together, and then it's going to take that's where I think education comes in, because we're going to have to balance all of these pieces separately to try to understand what's real, what's not, and to come to our own conclusions.
Yeah.
And I think that education is a huge piece of that, the constant questioning of what you're
Yeah,
saying. And
that's
so
also very interesting when we see that, you know, the a lot of the very interesting, you know, AI initiatives are led by the professionals who have academic background, right? And then like Singularity Net, like, you know, many of the larger scale AI initiative, and there is a very important education piece. There's, you know, always folks who have educational background who are leading those movements. I think that's exactly, you know, in line with what you were saying. Maybe one last question is around the innovations that happen within Singularity Net, because again, if you know lead a movement, you want to using the success to excite people or in the community. So do you see any exciting innovation happen within the Singularity Net so far?
I do. So we just got back from an intensive get together about strategic directions of our Hyperon initiative. That was held last week in Dubai, and a lot going on, and it all kind of fits together because I think we have the framework in place, and arguably it's been in place. What's new is how what we're looking at is taking advantage of scaling at multiple scales. So that's a double use of scaling there. So, but at multiple scales, I'm talking about, and this is one of the things that I see as our direction in a certain sense moving forward, which means scaling from the very small scale where you see certain patterns happening there. But now, how can we take advantage of special hardware? So now you're looking at the hardware scale to speed up calculations. How can we take advantage of base level concurrency so that which sometimes is very straightforward and quote embarrassingly parallelizable, but not all calculations fit that. So when they don't, how can we speed things up? And so I think of this coming from you start seeing these patterns at the quantum level. And then if you go up through the sizes, the scales, you see a lot of analogous patterns at the universal, the scale of the universe. And that's what I meant by across many scales, was from the very small, very, very small to the very, very large. So how can we take advantage of efficiencies and speed ups at each of these different scales? And that's where I see a lot of what we're doing is really aligning these different scales, figuring out how to speed these up, because we've seen some successes in our prior OpenCog system, but now we need to really accelerate those and across and the way to do that is by taking advantages of speed ups at every stage of our work. That might be a little vague, but
I think that makes sense. Okay, so you first need to bring those scenarios or use cases at different scale together. Then you can just really identify what is the scaling challenge they face at a different scale as what you mentioned. And then after you identify that, then that is where innovation need to happen really at different scale, and then after all those being solved, then you can reach the right scale. So we use the scale again here because that is the core of the challenge that you identified.
And there's a lot of technologies that seem to offer potential. We need to prove it still, but of at least several orders of magnitude speed up is what we're seeing. Again, we need to test it and make sure that it actually does work, but there's nothing I don't see, and neither do my colleagues see any reason why it shouldn't work. But until it's until it's proven, you can't accept it. But I mean, if it does work, then that's a quick 3 orders of magnitude improvement, which would be huge.
Yeah, and I think by the end of our conversation, your title as the Chief Scientist Officer make a lot more sense now. And this is a scientific approach, right? And where that you need to prove all that, and then before you can just really move to the next phase to scale. And that is something I think is scientific work. And my last question, and what advice would you give to aspiring AI professional who want to contribute to the development of AGI and make a positive impact in the field?
So that's another really good and interesting question. The fun thing about AGI research is it covers so many diverse areas. No one person has the whole answer. So I'll go back to last week again. I mean, it's super exciting. I mean, these. I have my own expertise, complex dynamical systems, and areas around that. I have my own weaknesses. So let's just, and even just the one narrow discipline called mathematics. I'm not particularly strong in algebraic structures, abstract algebra. And AGI is not just math. So you want to, it's this whole integrated neuroscience, psychology, cognitive science, computer science. There's a whole spread. So a couple of the people that were talking provided that strength, which I don't have in terms of algebraic structures. And it's like, oh, wow. I mean, this is so exciting. This is so, I didn't realize and how all this fits together. And I bring another insight from another direction. So to get back to your question, we need people from many different directions. I mean, and so well, okay. Well, so what we're aiming to do right now, and this is what essentially we were ending up talking about as well. We're trying to get the alpha of Hyperon to developers, to the open source community by March of next year. We need people to help us. And so to achieve AGI. And again, the strengths can be from many different directions. So we're going to try to have the documentation and user guide in place for that alpha. Yes. Once we have released this alpha version, we'll have the alpha version hopefully for internal use by January, and then for additional for open source people to help us and ask questions. And okay, here's my strength. Where do you be open, and we'll try to help put you where we think that fit would be most useful.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. And if I understand it correctly, I take that as an open innovation, open invitation to the open source community. That's once you read the document and align with your expertise, and then to try to be useful.
Right.
And that's, I think, probably solve the problem that way.
And then that goes back to I'll just finish to kind of your other questions regarding how do you ensure that the directions that we're pursuing are beneficial and benevolent. Well, open source, again, provides an additional level of transparency. It's not a guarantee that people can't misuse things, but there is that transparency.
Right. I completely agree. And I don't think anyone will claim that open source will solve the problem, but it provides the transparency. You see the problem, and
right.
That itself is as important as the solution solving problem. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And I really enjoyed this conversation. And this is our AI 2030 show. And tomorrow we have another very exciting speaker, Dan. And hopefully that you're able to join us at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. And thank you, Matthew. And have a great day.
You too. Thanks so much, Xiaochen. I probably butchered that, but